Hello, Don here. Welcome to Podiatry Practice Mastery, where we're helping you get your practice to the $1,000,000 mark and beyond. I'm going to share a couple of stories and experiences today. Number one is from Jackson. Jackson is one of the podcast listeners from Australia, and he took my treatment sheets. I was recently talking about a good, better, best option. So there's really a couple of ways that you can use the treatment sheets. One is like a checklist. So basically, you go through and say, okay, you need this, kind of like a prescribing checklist. I think similarly, if you look at for like shoes, you can prescribe exactly what they want for the type of shoes. So it's very similar for your practice. You get a Google Doc, you put in everything that they could use based on the category, and you prescribe. That's one way. That's how I started out. Next phase would be what I call phase one and phase two. So what most of my treatments are, they started as phase one, which are the insurance covered things, anti-inflammatories, icing, foam rolling, night splint, things like that. And then if they don't get better with treatment, they go on to phase two. And so phase two are more of the things that aren't covered by insurance. And then there's another format of doing it, which I really haven't. I'm proud of Jackson because this is a doctor that he did it, and it's called Good, Better, Best. So you make a sheet, kind of like if you've been to, like recently we were with our kids at Launch, which is a place where the kids play around, and they have like the packages. You have the Good, Better, Best package, and the best has, more things, more time, more benefits, video game credits, things like that. So in the practice, the similar thing, you could have good, better, best. And best might have like special times available for you, additional treatments, things like that. And so Jackson was stoked because the first time he was able to offer this to a patient, and they took his best package, which was $1,600. And for him, that was probably a combination of orthotics and a couple of sessions of shockwave and things like that. But I just want to tell you, if you're not offering kind of packages of treatment or combinations of treatments, that really, really helps with the treatment. They get better. But also, I think it's with the decision fatigue, because if you offer everything one at a time, the patients get overwhelmed. It's kind of like when you're buying a car, and you're going to do, what are the things you want. There are certain things that are standard in the car, and then there are other things that are upgrades, and they have like these package upgrades, and you can just get the package versus having to choose on every single one, which causes a lot of what we call decision fatigue. So patients and people, we don't like making a lot of decisions. So if you have this option, and if you want to use this good, better, best, you can just go to good, which is basically like the things that insurance covers. Better would be like regenerative medicine, and then best would be the things that, including like amniotic stem cell injection and other things like that for your practice. So I just want to give a shout out. If you're not using these treatment sheets, it's really easy. I've mentioned this before, but all you do is you take out a clipboard, you print one out, you show it to the patient. It doesn't have to be anything high tech. It's just one piece of paper, and that one piece of paper kind of made him about $1,600. So I would recommend you try doing some of these treatment sheets. I would just pick one diagnosis to start, like plantar fasciitis or Achilles tendonitis, that you see a lot, and it takes practice to learn the flow of checking things out and how to include it into your treatment protocol. But it works very, very well. So I want to give kudos to Jackson for doing this. I want to now transition a little bit to the next topic. Is I'm looking at my notes. Okay, the next topic, I was talking to another friend of mine, Jim, who runs Podiatry Growth. It's a website kind of marketing company, and he was saying, Don, I'd like you to talk about this because I've talked to a number of doctors, and they're around the $300,000 to $400,000, maybe $500,000 production, and they're busy, but they're broke. So the second thing I want to talk about here is how come some doctors, they seem like they're seeing so many patients, they're so busy, you could call it, but they're broke. They're not earning any revenue. So let's kind of do a deep dive into this. So when you talk about being busy, I would say 25 to 30 patients a day, in my opinion, is busy. If you are seeing patients, if you are doing notes, if you are doing all that goes along with it, you're going to be busy. I don't like to do more than like 25, and I have a nail tech sometimes that does other things. So certain days are a lot busier, but the nail tech is doing most of it. But why are these doctors ending up being broke? And I think the paradigm for a lot of us when we're finishing school is that insurance should cover everything. So that's one. And then the second thing is that you try to do everything every time or at all times. So my biggest tip, and I've mentioned this before, is what I call toenail Fridays. I learned this from someone else. They called it toenail Tuesdays. You can do it toenail whatever day you want. So if you are a podiatrist and listening to this, that's great. If you're in another profession, there are certain things that you do that don't produce a lot of revenue that you kind of have to do or someone has to do in your practice. So for us, that is going to be routine nail care or diabetic high-risk nail care, however you want to call it. And you're doing nails, you're doing calluses and things like that. So my day is Friday mornings, and I see patients, a lot of patients, and that's the only time that they can get access to me. And I do all the nail care that day, and I now have a nail tech that helps me. So she does the nail care. I'm pretty much doing the notes, and I go in and maybe do the more challenging calluses, and then I'm doing whatever the office visits are, maybe a diabetic foot exam, talking about new conditions that they have, things like that. And I only do that a half day a week. Why? Because it puts all what I call the low value patients. I'm not saying that the patients, I'm not saying they're low value, but I'm saying the revenue that it produces for your practice is relatively low. And if you can combine it all into the same day, it makes it a little bit more profitable because you're just kind of putting all those patients in on the same day. You get in your flow, because many times if we're seeing let's say a plantar fasciitis patient, that's going to take us more time, and then you have to go see a routine nail care, they're just waiting so long. Like one of the mistakes we're making right now in our practice is I have a buddy out that's on paternity leave, and so I'm seeing on Thursdays a few of his routines that are like kind of double booked with my nail tech, but I still have to like go in and at least say hi. And because of that, it's kind of slowing me down and increasing a level of stress that I just don't like. So I'm not really interested in doing that, especially on my days that I'm seeing other conditions. So I guess say number one would be figure out a day and say they can only come in those days. And you might say, but they're not going to like that. Okay, well, then they can find somewhere else to go. Like, you just say, this is kind of the way we do it here. This is the way we're doing it now. We used to do it differently, but now this is the way we do it. And you could leave even a full day if you want, or you could do a half day. And you might say, well, what am I going to do with all the other time? Well, that's where you're going to put these other patients that you're seeing for plantar fasciitis and other things that produce more revenue. So that would be like number one. Number two, and I think the reason you get busy and blow up, let's say you do that, you have your routine day, and all the other days you're seeing like plantar fasciitis and Achilles tendonitis, these other things that can be revenue generating. I feel like the second thing would be is focusing on treatments that get patients better faster. I think a lot of times we only want to do what insurance covers, and we don't want to be considered salespeople, right? I don't want to sell anything. I only do things that insurance covers. If we only do what insurance covers, it's going to be really hard to get your practice to the million or the $2 million mark, or even above the $300,000 or $400,000 or $500,000. That would be something that there are other types of treatments. It might be, for you, it might be MIS, it might be shockwave, it might be other types of treatments like amniotic stem cell injections or things like that are going to produce more revenue. But you really have to focus on those, orthotics, AFOs, balance braces, all these other types of things that those ethically you can use. You can bill insurance if you know how to bill them. But if some people they send out all their AFOs, for example. Why? Well, because they haven't learned how to dispense them in the office. There's a little learning curve for casting for or scanning for AFOs or scanning for orthotics. So think about what you're kind of sending out as well. Can you bring a lot of those things in-house for you? And so I think another thing would be, even I've heard of some doctors, they don't even have x-rays or digital x-rays, that they just send out x-rays. That doesn't make sense to me, because that's a revenue generator, or they don't have ultrasound. There's a lot of things that they don't have. So I think number one would be block timing the low value patients. Number two would be trying to increase the value of patients by doing things that produce more revenue, okay, for your practice. Why? Because you have kids to feed, you have a family to take care of, and really it's good medicine. Then the third thing I would say is, beyond the low value patients like a routine, I think I've made a distinction now in terms of follow-up. So if you're really busy, a lot of patients, I don't have follow-up. Like simple paronychias, I don't have follow-up anymore. Matrixectomies, instead of doing 2 follow-ups, I'll do 1 follow-up. And also in these slots, when I make follow-ups, I have these 10-minute slots. So instead of using a 20-minute new patient slot that could be for a new or a patient that's going to need more time at the follow-up, these simple ones, I'm putting in these in the 10-minute slots so they don't take as much time, because they're not going to need as much time. So properly booking for the type of patient and kind of doing that can really, really help boost and give more spots for these other types of patients. So I just wanted to share, these would be like the top 3 things that I would fix if I was starting with this, in terms of how to not be busy or you can be busy and not broke. So that is it. And then the last thing I was going to share with you, I wanted to give you an update about these urgent cares for those that are listening. I handed out my first urgent care to a shoe store here, and they're handing out these urgent care forms, or these urgent care postcards that I made. Now, when I brought it back to my marketing team, they're like, Don, how are you tracking this? And I'm like, oh, not again. Did I make this mistake again? Because I think we don't think, or I don't know about we, but I don't think about like tracking stuff. And I think that's one of the challenges when you're doing any type of marketing, is we don't have really good tracking. And so it's a simple thing. What my friend did is he said, hey, Don, this postcard is good. You have like your 30-second foot analyzer, which really just is a distraction, because if they have foot pain, they just want an appointment. He said, take that off. The phone number that you have is a generic phone number. You need to put a tracking phone number in there. And if you don't know what a tracking phone number is, you can reach out to me or ask me. But basically, it's a phone number that forwards to your regular phone number, but it's on there. And then it also records the calls and tells where they came from. So, for example, if I want to know how these urgent cares are producing, I can track them. So all these cards that are kind of all and about and being used, when people call that number, it'll track, okay, you had this many calls from the urgent care. So I'm not handing out these other acrylic little postcard holders. I've ordered them from Amazon. Once again, if you want to see where I order them from or get my samples, you can shoot me an email, don@podiatry. I can certainly send you the Canva layout. You can copy it, and also the acrylic where I get them on Amazon. I'll be happy to share that with you. But it's working well. I think this urgent care focus, a lot of people have mentioned they like it because it's something that increases the patients that come into the office, and patients are already looking for urgent care help. Like this week, multiple patients went to the urgent care versus coming to see me first. And one of the patients had a stress fracture on the 3rd metatarsal, and that wasn't diagnosed, basically because it takes a couple weeks to show up on the x-ray. There was another patient that came in for he had a cellulitis and an abscess, and they tried to drain it, but they didn't know how deep it was. So I did an ultrasound, and I could see there was a pocket underneath there, so I had to open it up and have him do packing. And so these are a couple of things that come from urgent care. So I'm trying to kind of cut the line and have them come directly from the urgent care. I've even thought, and I haven't had the courage to do this yet, but taking these urgent care cards that I have and giving them to the urgent cares. So like if someone comes in with a foot issue, say, hey, you came to the urgent care, but now you go to the urgent care podiatry place. I think they might do that if I drop it off for them as well, and I could track how many come from that. Okay, once again, hope you guys found this beneficial. I love the questions that people ask me and you sharing your experiences with me. So if you have a great experience or something that you use that really worked for your practice and that you're happy about, please share it so I can share it with other people and I can give them an update. So really enjoyed doing this, and I really enjoyed the feedback of people emailing me. So once again, it's Don@podiatrypracticemastery.com, trying to help you get to the $1 million mark and beyond.